Many people are curious on what really happened between the Marcos and the Aquinos, that their political rivalry towards each other is still a big talk up until now. After watching the speech of Corazon Aquino in the US Congress, the EDSA Revolution documentary, and the Marcos perspective, I get insights on what happens between these politicians. What was the Aquinos fighting for? What is the people's opinion? And why did they oppose with Marcos? And what did Ferdinand Marcos Sr. decisions on that time? It was still a question that people are searching for answers. Benigno Ninoy Aquino was the husband of Corazon Cory Aquino. As they bury him, a whole nation honored him as Ninoy fight for the democracy of the nation. A nation that was ashamed of itself found its own through that heroic and selfless act of offering honor. A nation that had lost hope for the future discovered it in a brutal and shameless murder. In other words, we gain by giving, we discover by losing, and we steal our victory from failure. Ninoy became the answered prayers of the people for freedom. For Cory, Ninoy was a loving husband and a father to their children. The president detained Ninoy along with thousands of senators, publishers, and anyone who opposed the democracy. Even after destroying the democratic institutions, the dictator was aware that Ninoy was a powerful leader he had to break. The authorities used terror and shame to try and break him. In a military camp in the north, they imprisoned him in a tiny, almost airless cell. Corazon Aquino stated in her speech on how the task had fallen into her shoulders to continue offering the democratic alternative to our people. After her husband died, she continues fighting for the democracy of our nation. The EDSA Revolution was a result of the long-oppressed freedom of the life-threatening abuses executed by the Marcos government, to cite several events like human rights violations since the tyrannical martial law proclamation in 1972. In the years that followed martial law, which marked by the beginning of oppressive and abusive years, assassination incidents increased, especially against individuals who challenged the government. After Benigno Aquino was shot and killed at the airport in August 21, 1983, Filipinos' patience were tested and they learned to fight. Ninoy's wife, Corazon Aquino, showed to the Filipino people and the rest of the world how to reclaim the democracy that Ferdinand Marcos had suppressed at his will. The dictatorship then called for a snap election in February 7, 1986, in which the people obliged, and with over 1 million of signatures, they drafted Cory Aquino to challenge the dictatorship. Due to uncontrolled cheating and violence, the snap election was considered as a fraud. It was a rigged election as the opposition swept the elections, garnering a clear majority of the votes due to a corrupt commission on elections. The revolt commenced when Marcos' defense minister Juan Ponce Enrile and the Armed Force Vice Chief of Staff Command of Fidel V. Ramos both withdrew their support from the government and called upon the resignation of then President Marcos. They responsibly barricaded Camp Crame and Camp Aguinaldo and had their troops ready to combat against possible armed attack organized by Marcos and his troops. However, the people, including the military and the Catholic Church, rallied in the street and proclaimed Cory Aquino as President of the people. Defection from the armed force of the Philippines and the support of the local Catholic led to the People Power Revolution that ousted Marcos and secured Aquino's accession on February 25, 1986. At the end of the day, before another wave of fraud could distort the results, Corazon announced the people's victory. In Marcos' perspective, based on watching the movie made in Malacanang, they suffer from many betrayals of several high-ranking officials, including several palace staffs, while the revolution at EDSA is growing. The movie reveals the story behind the facade of the presidential palace. It was seen in the movie that there were boxes full of undistributed cash, which many would interpret as money intended to buy voters in the 1986 snap election, but for Amy Marcos, it was a payment for people who worked for the Marcos campaign. It was included there in which Corazon Aquino was playing mahjong with nuns, as it shows as a symbolic representation of the political elites playing with the church during EDSA, and no one can dispute that indeed the church played a crucial role there. Aside from the Marcoses, there were other people who helped and served them as guards and maids who for so long were invincible, but finally were given a voice in this film. It was explained on this film about humanizing the Marcoses and remembering them that they are also human. All individual has different political view. People are free to choose on who they want to support, especially that we are in a democratic country in which the people decided on who will they elect in the government. Individuals should respect each other's opinion and take their election as a serious matter.